Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Q&A, you guys. Welcome to the Q&A. I've got a lot of good questions. Won't keep you long tonight, but really want to go over all the questions and really what's happening in the industry. It's a great opportunity to really start the process of building wealth. So we had a good caravan to some of our investors' properties on Saturday, the Platinum Coaching Program. Students, if you guys are interested in our Platinum Coaching Program, reach out to me, reach out to Keith. We'd love to sit down and talk to you and talk to you really about elevating your business and taking it to the next level. Got some questions on different areas. We were in Baltimore on Saturday, so got a couple questions about Baltimore, Maryland. What are the best areas? A properties, B property, C property, D property. What does all that kind of stuff mean? I'll go over the math this evening, but I don't know if we'll do a competition. I want to take my time and just really go over the math with you guys, just to make sure that you guys understand it. Keith Bennett is in the house. So contact Keith. Keith would love to talk to you guys about our Platinum Coaching Program. Our students are doing a great job. We went by Allison's property in Baltimore. She's one of our Platinum Coaching students. She purchased the property on an online auction. And Latisse property also in Reservoir Hill. And so they're getting those properties through auctions, through wholesalers, social media, they're cold calling, sending out postcards, doing things like that. So it's prime time season, you guys. Spring has started. Spring market is here. The real estate market never really, because of COVID and the seller's market, the real estate market really never did cool down. But this is prime time season. So let's do some marketing, driving for dollars. You know, whatever it is, let's do some marketing. And so interest rates are creeping up just a little bit. You guys can still get investor loans. We have lenders. We have lenders that can get you investor loans, whether you're fixing and flipping, you need rehab loans, or you're buying and holding. We got some really good buy and hold products, really good buy and hold products. If you're looking to buy and hold. And of course, you know, Celebrate Settlement Services, our investor friendly title company is ready to serve you. And so if you guys need to close fast, close with a title company that understands investing, give Celebrate Settlement Services, say that 3 times quickly, a holler. And so put in the comment section, let me know how you guys are doing. How are you guys doing? What do you guys need help with? Let me know what you guys are grateful for this evening. It's Tuesday evening. We've been experiencing great weather. Easter's coming up. What are you guys grateful for on this Tuesday evening? What are you guys grateful for? We'll probably take a break next Tuesday. And then we'll be back the following Tuesday. So, and you can still contact me with any questions. But what are you guys grateful for? Put in the chat box. Let me know. Also, just want to give you guys a shout out. I've been buying properties myself. And I've been primarily buying these properties through wholesalers. And so I'm happy to pay top dollar to wholesalers. Find a property. I'll vet the property for you. I'll go to the property with you. I'll run the numbers. Happy to do that. Happy to run the numbers. You've got a cash buyer here. I primarily buy in DC. I buy in Prince George's County, Maryland. I will buy in Baltimore, but I have lots of investors, lots of other cash buyers that will buy in Baltimore. For those of you that don't know, we're opening up an office in Baltimore, in Owings Mills. And so that office should be open in June. The lease starts June 1st. And so we'll have some type of grand opening or launch party. But I want to open it up to investors too. If you guys are in the area, in the Baltimore area, and need a place to go to do work, do business, write contracts, whatever you need to do, that office will be open for you guys as well. Not just my agents, obviously open for my agents, but also for my investors as well. All right, so let me get with some of the questions here. Let me start with some of the questions. Let's see. All right. And so the first question is, it says you mentioned buying the property in a company's LLC name. So definitely, I want you guys buying the properties in the LLC. Definitely do that. I don't want you buying properties in your own name. I mean, you can, but you're not protected. If something was to go wrong, everything that you have, if sued, the plaintiff can get. So we want to protect ourselves. So we set up an LLC to protect ourselves. So I want you guys to be protected. And so we set up an LLC to protect ourselves. But then also we set up an LLC so that not only are we protecting ourselves, we're also shielding ourselves from paying corporate taxes. So as an LLC, we're taxed as individuals. And so that's why we set up an LLC. And so I want you investing out of an LLC. Next question is, do you create an LLC for each buy and hold? So that's a good question. And so the answer is, I personally, I don't. Maybe 3 or 4 properties, and that's it. But I don't, because it's almost kind of the same theory. If you have, let's say, 10 properties in one LLC, and something happens on one of those 10 properties, hey, Iris, Iris is here, and something happens to one of those 10 properties, you guys, and that LLC gets sued, then all the assets in that LLC, can be taken away from you. And so I limit my LLCs to the properties in my LLCs to 3 or 4. As a matter of fact, I have 3 properties now that two of them need to get rented out. So I own them free and clear. Actually, I own all 3 of them free and clear. One of them is rented out Section 8. I'm going through lead testing, which has already been completed. I just need to get a inspection from the city in Baltimore, and then I'll rent out the other 2 Section 8. And so I'm going to combine all 3 of the properties into one loan. And so I'll have all 3 into one loan, into one LLC. And I'll just have those 3 properties in an LLC. I've got 4 properties in another LLC with one loan. I like doing it that way because, with 4 different or 3 different settlements, you're paying, closing costs on all 3. When you bundle them, you're only paying the title company one set of, title charges. So it's just a lot cheaper that way. Same with the lender charges, things like that. The lender charges are on one loan. So on the one loan that I have with the 4 properties, I think the loan amount is about $160, something like that, $160. Actually, one of my properties actually pays for the mortgage, and so I've got incredible cash flow on that loan. And the same with the one that's coming up. That loan amount will be about 140, maybe 200 on those 3. But the mortgage payment on those 3 should be about $1,200. The property taxes in Baltimore are really, really inexpensive. And with the low interest rates on those 3 properties, I would imagine my payment would be somewhere around $1,100 or $1,200. One of them will rent for $1,500. And so one of the properties pays for the mortgage and then some. And I'll have all three of them rented out, and I'll use a voucher holder. They'll all be in one LLC. So that's one way to do it. That's actually the BRRRR method, but that's just one way to do it. But I don't put a lot of properties in one LLC. All right, next question. Can you explain how you can tell the differences between A, B, C, and D properties? All right, so generally speaking, when we talk about A, B, C, and D properties, the A are the best properties. The A's are generally kind of in affluent neighborhoods, low crime rate, generally high taxes there. As investors, we generally don't invest in those areas because those A areas are more expensive. And so we generally don't invest in those areas. Those of you who are in the DMV, I would say that like a Georgetown, Potomac properties there, probably almost all of like Montgomery County, not all of Montgomery County, but those type of areas, those are A neighborhoods. As investors, we don't invest there because, like I said, it just costs too much there. So that's at one end of the spectrum. At the other end of the spectrum are your D neighborhoods. Your D neighborhoods are the most inexpensive properties, but as opposed to the A neighborhoods where there's low crime, D neighborhoods are the most crime. So you've got high crime on those properties. You've got a lot of maintenance because of the type of tenants that those neighborhoods attract. So you've got a lot of maintenance costs there. You're getting those properties inexpensively, but because of a lot of crime in Baltimore, you'll see a lot of board ups on streets. Those are neighborhoods that are D neighborhoods. As investors, we don't buy in D neighborhoods where there's high crime, where there's really low appreciation. We don't buy in those neighborhoods. We generally, as investors, buy in B and C neighborhoods. I try to buy in B and C neighborhoods. Honestly, I would prefer really C neighborhoods because in C neighborhoods, for example, in Baltimore, I'll just take Baltimore for example. If I get a call and say, Greg, I've got a property at that you can buy for $10,000 or $15,000, I don't even look at it because I already know it's in a D neighborhood. I'm generally buying for $40,000, $50,000. Up to $70,000 because those are in B and C neighborhoods where the crime is not as bad. You're still getting a lot of really good appreciation on those properties. The maintenance costs aren't as much as a D neighborhood, and so we generally buy in B and C neighborhoods. And so I got a question on what are the better neighborhoods or what are some of the neighborhoods to consider in Baltimore. That was one of the questions for fix and flip or buy and hold. And if you guys could help me out, put in the comment section, what are some of the neighborhoods that you guys like investing in or familiar with? And so I would say like a Bel Air Edison, 21213 is probably a B- C neighborhood. I invest there. I invest there because I can buy fairly low, but still around $40,000. The one I have now I bought for around $40,000 at an auction. But the houses sell for about $175,000. And the rents are about $1,500. So that's Baylor Edison. For me, it's a B minus, C neighborhood. Charles Village is more of a B neighborhood, 21218. And so I've owned properties there in Charles Village. Pigtown is definitely like a B neighborhood. Brooklyn is a C neighborhood. Edmondson, that's in West Baltimore, 21229. That's in my opinion more of a C neighborhood, where I bought a 2-unit there for, I believe, $48,000. Tenants were already in the property. I kept the tenants because the tenants were voucher holders and they were already paying up to the limit of what voucher holders were paying at the time. And so I kept the tenants in there. And so I basically bought the property turnkey. So that's Edmondson Village. Tanja's saying Holland Market is good. Holland Market, I would say it would be more of a B minus neighborhood. Reservoir Hill. And so the Platinum Coaching students actually went to Reservoir Hill Saturday. Latif, one of our agent investors, has 2 properties there. Reservoir Hill is a B neighborhood all day long. B neighborhood, maybe B plus neighborhood. Property that he was renovating though was a gut job, and took a lot of renovations. One of those big 4-level row houses that I actually had one in Reservoir Hill, similar property, probably like 5 or 6 years ago, where I was going to renovate it and make it a 4-unit building because it had one of those, I forget, those staircases on the exterior on the back. It had kitchens on all 4 levels, bedroom, bathrooms on all 4. So it was a 4-unit building. I was going to keep it as a 4-unit building, but it was just too much work. It was in a historic neighborhood. That's another set of inspections. And so I said, so I wholesaled it and made $20,000. Bolton Hill is good. So Sharvita is saying Bolton Hill. Bolton Hill is good. Those of you who are either in the DMV or outside of the DMV, and one of the reasons why I'm getting an office in Baltimore for my agents and myself is because you can really make a fortune if you know what you're doing, know the neighborhoods like you guys are asking. You can make a fortune if you just really study it. I get the question about zip codes. And I don't think it's a fair question because every zip code in Baltimore is good and bad. I just mentioned Edmondson Village. That's 21229. In some parts, like where I bought right on Edmondson Avenue, it's like a C plus neighborhood. You buy there all day long. Where I'm at, no board ups whatsoever. No board ups. But going on down the street, about 5 or 6 blocks down, you're still in Edmondson Village, you're still 21229, nothing but board up. So every zip code has its pluses and minuses. That's why you can never ever buy a property in Baltimore sight unseen. You can't do that. You've got to go to Baltimore and actually look at the property. But more importantly, look at the neighborhood. I'll look at some neighborhoods and I won't even get out the car. I'm like, I'm not, there's board ups here. And so you really have to know what you're doing. And you can do extremely well. Baltimore, I think I've said this to you guys a lot, but Baltimore is the #1 residential rental area in the United States. Number one, and it's because you can buy low and rent high, especially with voucher holders. And there's a backlog. There's a backlog. Some investors, they get phone calls from housing. Do you have any properties? We've got all these voucher holders and nothing, no houses for them. And so you got to get to know the process. I'm a big advocate for voucher holders, not just Section 8. There's all kinds of different programs, but I'm an advocate for it primarily because it's recession proof. I went through a recession where I had a portfolio of 13 properties, almost all of them in DC. When the market crashed in 2007, 2008, my income was cut in half. A lot of my tenants lost their jobs. They weren't paying. I had bought the properties in the 90s, so I had a ton of equity in them. And I ended up slowly but surely selling them off because I just couldn't subsidize, the rents. And it comes with a lot of regret. I could have fought and held on to them. They didn't have like the programs that are out now. There's like moratoriums and there's PPP money and small business money. They didn't have that back during the recession. At least I don't remember it like they do now. And that lasted a lot longer than hopefully this is going to last. That lasted seems like starting in 2007, stock market crashed, real estate market crashed, everything crashed. See, we didn't start pulling ourselves out. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. It seemed like it took 3 or 4 years before we really started to pull ourselves out. Hopefully with everybody vaccinated by, I think it's July 1st, they want everybody vaccinated. Towards the end of the year, we'll start to pull ourselves out and hopefully business as usual, but we'll see. But so one of my regrets in life is to sell off some of those. I did keep some of them, but I mean, I had properties in DC that now I had one in Petworth that I bought. I was all in around 200,000. I mean, my property in Petworth now would have been, and probably hopefully would have had it paid off by now. Petworth, you're selling ARVs around 900, 950. And I had completely renovated that house and decided to rent it out. And I had others all around the city. That's another lesson, you guys. When you buy property, take it from me, when you buy property, do whatever you can to hold on to it. If you need money, get a line of credit or do a cash out refinance, whatever that is. Because I've owned a lot of property since I bought my first property at 22. And some I wish I would have held on to. I had properties in DuPont Circle, Adams Morgan, Fort Lincoln, Petworth, like all over. I mean, we live and we learn. And so I preach, you buy a property, hold on to it. My strategy at the time was to, early in my career, to sell off some of the properties and then scale up and buy multifamily. I was young, I was in my 20s. By the time I was 28, I believe, I had 5 properties all in the city. And I had these dreams of grandeur. And I sold off a couple of the properties and never bought the multifamily like I thought I would, like I had planned. So hold on to your properties. I hold on to them now. But that's just lessons learned. All right. So hopefully those are great areas in Baltimore, you guys. I love Baltimore, but I love DC too. I'm hopefully will be buying a property in it's called River Terrace. I forget the other name for it. River Terrace, Lily Ponds. And so, but we call it River Terrace. I believe those of you from DC, familiar with DC, if you would have asked me what's the up and coming area, where should you be buying now that properties are going to appreciate at 70% in the next 2 or 3 years, like Trinidad did. The Trinidad section of Northeast DC, over the last 5 or 6 years have appreciated at 70%, you guys. Over the last 5 or 6 years, the next area is River Terrace. I mean, we all know that Deanwood is probably already there. So obviously Deanwood and then River Terrace. or River Terrace in Deanwood. So I'd start buying up Lily Pond, all that's right there. Lily Pond / River Terrace, and then Deanwood. And so if you guys find properties in those areas, I'll buy it, whether they're like this one. Hopefully, if I get it, I don't know if I will. It's a 2-bedroom, and I generally don't buy 2 bedrooms to hold. My model is 3 bedrooms, 3-bedroom row house, interior unit. That's my model. But this one's 2 bedrooms, no basement, interior unit, I believe. I want it. I'm all over it because I see what's happening in the marketplace, especially now. Property values, properties are appreciating now at 20%, like a year, 20% a year, double in value in 5 years. But even so the one that I hope to buy, the after repair value now is 400,000, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, no basement, River Terrace. After repair value is 400. If I just get 10% appreciation in the next 10 years, it doubles in value. 10 years worth 800,000. Hard to fathom right now, but it was hard to fathom 10 years ago. When we were buying in when after repair value in River Terrace was like 199, 175. Now 10 years later, it's 400. Like, it's almost hard to believe. Properties in Congress Heights, 400, 450. Deanwood, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Deanwood, $500,000, $500,000. It's like unbelievable. Unbelievable. You look back at it 10 years ago, it's like, no, Deanwood, no, 10 years ago, we were buying, after repair value in Deanwood was like less than 200,000, 150. Look up the comps, realtors, look up the after repair values in Deanwood now for a row house, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, over $500,000. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And so I just kind of, without really doing it, kind of compared and contrasted the rental markets in Baltimore and DC. We buy and hold in DC for equity and appreciation. And you'll get cash flow, but not as great as Baltimore. So DC, equity and appreciation. We invest in Baltimore primarily for cash flow. We're not expecting any. When I buy in Baltimore, I don't expect any appreciation. I get my equity going in. I get my equity when I buy the property. So I make sure I buy the property right. These 2 that I have, I own free and clear, but we'll put mortgages on them for about $70,000 a piece, somewhere around there, $70,000 a piece. But after repair value is 140, so I'm going in at $70,000 in equity for each property. So 140, 150 in equity for the 2 properties, but I'm gonna have over for the 2 properties. Now I'm gonna bundle them with a third, but for the 2 properties, I'm gonna have over $2,000 in cash flow on those 2 properties. Over $2,000 in cash flow on those 2 properties. So, and so that's what you do in Baltimore when you're holding. You've got to make sure that you're buying for cash flow. And cash flow in Baltimore can't be $100,000 a month in positive cash flow, or 200, or even 300. I mean, in DC, you're getting incredible appreciation, and you're still getting like $400 or $500 a month in cash flow starting out. And so that's why a lot of people love, will invest in DC. as opposed to Baltimore. But I invest, so I try to do both. In my portfolio, I have both. I mean, I have a mixed bag. I've got Anne Arundel County, which is Annapolis. I have a property there. PG County, Baltimore, DC. So I have a mixed bag of properties in my portfolio. And I think that's the best way to do it. The best way to do it. So Eric is saying River Terrace is nice. Just curious, do you think it's a B or C neighborhood? Good question, Eric. I would say that River Terrace right now is probably, in my opinion, like a C+ neighborhood. But I think it's on the verge of being like a B- neighborhood. Much like those of you, all the old heads on here that know what River Terrace was like, say 20 years ago, not River Terrace, Trinidad was 20 years ago. How old am I? Or 30 years ago, what Trinidad was like. It was run down. It was drug infested. You didn't want to go up and down those streets in Trinidad. 20 years ago, but definitely in the 80s, in the mid 80s, early 90s, when DC was drug infested, where DC was the murder capital of the United States, Trinidad right there. Now, with gentrification, Trinidad is selling like, so I went and looked at a property last week in Trinidad. After repair value was almost like $900,000 in Trinidad. They've got some in the millions. There's lots of condo conversions in Trinidad. And so all of that's going to happen in River Terrace. Mark my word for it, all of that, so it's coming out. So going down Benning Road is Trinidad, and so coming up towards 295, you got Spingarn High School, you've got Langston Golf Course on one side, you've got the old RFK Stadium, and then like a quarter of a mile up from there, or really right there, is River Terrace. And so it's just coming up Benning Road from Trinidad. It's going to be, River Terrace is the next section. And so Dana's asking, let me put his question up here. Dana's asking, does that mean that Baltimore would not be good starting out your portfolio, meaning that your borrowing would not be as great to do to less equity? And so I think it's quite the contrary. I think Baltimore is a great area to start with your portfolio. It's a great area to start. And most of you guys should get started in Baltimore. The reason I say that is because you want to, number one, buy the property right. In Baltimore or in any area, you want to buy with equity. And so each one of my properties recently, I'm buying for, what I bought in Bel Air Edison, I bought with $100,000 in equity, but the other ones are about 70. So you've got $70,000 in equity right now. You start there because in Baltimore it's inexpensive. And so it's very, very inexpensive. You can start with equity and you're going to have incredible cash flow. Now, the more of those properties in Baltimore that you buy, let's say you start at $70,000 in equity and you eventually get up to about 5 properties at $70,000. I mean, that's $350,000 in net worth just on those 5 properties. And let's say that you get a little bit less than 5% appreciation. That $350,000 can turn into $500,000 in equity, which means on those 5 properties, you've got $500,000 in net worth. And so what does that mean for you? On those 5 properties, when you go to fill out your personal financial statement to the bank, when you're looking for more lines of credit, because of that that equity on your personal financial statement, you're going to be able, they're going to lend you more money or give you more money. Now, with that line of credit, let's say that with just those 5 properties, Dana, you're able to get a line of credit, and this is real, you're able to get a line of credit of $1 million. Now you take that line of credit, and if you want, now you go to what I would consider better properties that's going to appreciate. But you used those properties that were inexpensive to put on your personal financial statement so that eventually you could borrow more money to graduate to either multifamily, graduate to better neighborhoods that are going to appreciate, to graduate to whatever else you want. Could be commercial real estate. But you use those Baltimore properties as a base to give you a lot of credibility on your personal financial statement. So now when you go to an Eagle Bank or Sandy Spring Bank or a Capital Bank, one of those community banks, and say, I want $1 million line of credit, or I want a $2 million line of credit, they're going to look at your personal financial statement. How many properties do you have? They're going to look at that. They're going to look at what are your own personal expenses. They're going to look at that. Any cash that you may have, they're going to look at that. And guess what, you guys? The last thing they look at, the last thing is your credit. That's the last thing they look at. They want to know, they want to look at everything else. They want to build look at the picture and, kind of build a plan for you. Last thing they look at, last thing they even care about is your credit. Now, just getting started, I mean, I would say that you need at least a 680 credit score. But Dana, use Baltimore to initially build you up and give you credibility. Now you use that credibility. Hopefully this is making sense to you guys. Now you use that credibility to now you've got power. I'm going to go and get $1 million line of credit. Now, $1 million line of credit sounds like a lot of money, but the reality is, unfortunately, it's not a lot, especially if you're buying and holding, in say an area like DC, east of the river. $1 million will probably only get you maybe 3 properties, maybe 4, but probably 3, which is fine. Because once you've used up that line of credit, you've been paying your mortgage notes on time. Now you go back and say, I want to increase my line of credit. No, increase it. A lot of my platinum coaching students have done what I'm suggesting. One of them started with only like 200. They started her off with like a $275,000 line of credit. Used that up on one property. 3 months later, she went and they gave her a $500,000 line of credit. Bought 2 properties with that, buy and hold, they're cash flowing. Then she went in and said, I want $1 million. They gave her $1 million. She showed a lot of credibility, gave her $1 million. Now she's going for $2 million, and so on and so forth. Most banks will only give you a line of credit up to about $15 million. But just keep going. Just keep going. But here's the trick, you guys. Now she's going to another bank to get another line of credit from another bank. So now she's got 2 banks, and hopefully a couple of years from now, she'll have $15 million from one and $15 million from another. Started off in Baltimore, to answer Dana's question. Started off in Baltimore and just kind of grew. And that's how you grow, you guys. That's how you grow. And so DJ is asking, can you get a HELOC on an investment property? Can you get a home equity line of credit on an investment property? Absolutely. Absolutely, you can. All right. All right. So yeah, Andre is saying buy low, sell high. We want to buy low. Absolutely. Absolutely buy low, sell high. All right. Let's see. Let me answer a couple more questions. What are some areas, neighborhoods to consider fix and flip for newbie in PG County? That's a good question. And so the question is, for someone new, fixing and flipping in Prince George's County, Maryland, somebody put in the chat, in the comment section, what are some good areas there? What are some good areas in Prince George's County to fix and flip?